Hello, college football fans. Welcome to episode 97 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by two co-hosts. As always, my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hello, Husker fans and college football fans.
And our special guest, who happens to be at this campsite in Arizona with us, Uncle AJ.
Hello, everyone.
Alrighty.
Or Brother AJ, if you're coming from Dad's perspective. So yes, we're all together here on a Sunday talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers as well as what happened in the wider world of college football. This is a college football podcast by college football fans for college football fans. And before we dive into the Iowa game that Nebraska played this weekend, I believe we all have some beverages to crack open here.
We do.
Mine is a Shock Top Belgian White, one of my favorites, personally.
And where is that made?
No idea.
No idea.
I don't look into that stuff like you do.
You're a loser. Okay. Well, I think that's either an Arizona beer or a California beer. I'm not sure which, but it's from out here in the West. And
Actually, it says, it's brewed in Missouri.
Oh,
St.
really?
Louis.
Oh.
So
okay.
it's
probably a Budweiser
probably a Budweiser product then.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. But, all right. Very good.
What do you have?
I have a Pacifico. This is a Mexican beer that was a favorite of your uncle Joe, who's passed away, and is the brother of obviously AJ and I, and so we both have fond memories of talking Husker football and drinking Pacificos before. Say, I have a particular memory of doing that before a bowl game in San Diego many moons ago. And us pounding a few cervezas before the game. So that's what this is about, right?
All right. And what do you got there, AJ?
I got a Michelob Ultra. I'm a lightweight.
Here we
Let's
go. All righty.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Man, it's about
to
time.
podcast.
Yeah, in stereo. I like it. All righty then. Oh, shoot. I didn't end up bringing my... I didn't bring my predictions with me from last time.
That's okay.
We usually do our predictions, but
Yes,
as I
we can
recall,
remember them.
I think you predicted that we would lose like 42 to 21.
That's correct.
Yeah, more lopsided thing. And I predicted something closer to the actual score. I think it was like 21-28. I predicted we'd lose by one touchdown. And the final score ended up being 20-26. So I was a little closer in terms of the score discrepancy.
But we were both picking a Nebraska victory.
No, we were lost.
Oh, excuse me, Nebraska loss. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes, and that's how it turned out. However, thankfully, it wasn't the blowout potential that you had mentioned that we could experience on the last podcast. In fact, it was one of those situations where, frankly, we were in control of the game at a certain point, and could have won it. When you look at the stats, we actually had a little bit more total offense, 338 to 322. Yes. In general, the stats are pretty even across the board, with the exception of time of possession, which they were way better at 34 minutes to our 25 minutes. And then, of course, the crucial turnovers, that
and
had an effect on the game.
Huge stat. That's the huge stat is those darn turnovers that killed us.
Right. Well, and for those who watched the game, you may remember that Nebraska was down like 10-0 early, and then we clawed our way back to get it to 13-13 at halftime, which, given that we hadn't played that well, but it started to get things together in the second quarter, we brought Adrian Martinez in as the quarterback. So things seemed to be starting to click there. And then we were in a position to fight back to tie them up later on in the game, and then our guy, or actually, we would have gotten the lead. We would have gotten a lead if we had gotten a touchdown, and then our guy dropped the punt right after we had 3-and-out at him, and gave them. They didn't end up scoring off of that. They got a field goal, I believe, but it was a definite turning point in the momentum of the game right there, and off of a stupid, very preventable mistake.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is that. Actually, the last 3 games against Iowa, all Iowa victories, have been games that effectively we had reasonable opportunities to win. They ended up being very close In fact, I think 3 years ago it might have even gone into overtime, or if it wasn't, it was another one of these last minute, win it on a field goal at the end of the game type of deal. And I know last year was that they kicked a field goal with 3 seconds to go, and then this year, frankly, until pretty darn late in the game, we had every opportunity to win that football game.
Right. Well, and even up to the very end, you may remember that they went down, kicked a field goal and missed, correct, which meant they were up only 6 points, not 9, correct, and there was like 2 minutes left on the clock, which meant that, it was still a long shot, but we had a chance to get a drive going. If we could score a touchdown, we win the game by 1 point there.
Correct.
But then, and we got a couple plays going, and then Adrian gets sacked, and the ball comes out, and it's game over.
Game over.
Yeah.
Something on the stats that I'm looking at and noticing is that they had 12 more plays than we did. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, part of what hurt them is there was too many short series by the offense, either 3 and outs or
interception
or whatever
turnover.
It might be. It was whatever it stunted the offense for them to still out yardage them, even though they had 12 more plays, is pretty good. The other thing that stands out to me in the stats, which I cannot believe it, but it's there, the quarterbacks went 21 for 25. That's crazy.
Yep.
From those two guys?
Yeah.
Holy cow, they did great.
Well, all right. Well, yeah, at one point, Adrian just had one missed pass.
Yeah,
and
he
that
was
was
10 for 11.
And that was a pass that you actually
he threw it
AJ,
away.
Yeah,
Yes.
you made the
Threw it
comment that that pass was a conscious throw it out of bounds because the
instead
guy
of
was
getting
covered.
sacked or
Right.
Which was
Yeah.
a good,
Which was a very
good
good-
incompletion.
yeah, that was
Yep.
a good incompletion.
And their guy was 18 of 30 with 1 interception. We had no interceptions on the day. And in general, we definitely saw, some improvement from Adrian. There was that pass that Allen caught.
Oh, that was a spectacular catch by Allen.
In a 3rd and 20-something situation, and he barely got his feet in bounds, really used his height to a great advantage there.
Yes.
That was a great play.
That is actually an example of that wasn't a great throw by Martinez, although he was scrambling, and it ultimately was a great play. But I give a ton of credit to Allen, and he is really emerging as a guy that actually can get the job done. Now, how he's grading out as a blocker, I really can't give you that piece of information. But as a receiver, he has become a go-to guy for us.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we won't spend too much time on this, but what happened to him where he kind of got picked up by the Iowa guys and then dropped on his head. And I'm not sure if there's been any injury report on him after that, but it seemed odd that, we've had all these discussions about targeting and, what players need to be doing, and yet there's no sort of flag for something like that. That seems way more blatant.
Right.
So.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing is that I don't know if those discussions will happen in the off season about the targeting rule and how it relates to other events that happen in a football game, but I sure hope there is some conversation along those lines.
Yeah. And one other point of improvement I want to note that I have seen, over the course of this season compared to the beginning where we were very penalty prone and we had those very damaging targeting calls. There was one particular hit in this game where it looked like in the moment, oh, maybe it is, but you could very clearly see in the replay our dude led with his shoulder, was clearly avoiding that sort of situation from happening. And in total, we only had 4 penalties over the course of the game, one of which was particularly significant, though, a holding call on a run, nice 20-yard run that Adrian had that would have gotten us going nicely on that drive and instead pushed us back and we had to punt it.
Right.
But, so in general,
about that.
Yeah, but the team has, cleaned some of that stuff up. And although, there are areas where I'm frustrated with the defense, once again, I feel like this is a game where, the defense did reasonably well, holding Iowa to a lot of field goals, and the offense just kind of let them down, and the special teams as well. Really odd on kickoffs as well. Even when we were kicking with the wind, we weren't kicking into the end zone this game.
Right. And I don't know what the strategy was on that. I don't like it. It was clearly a strategy. It was a conscious choice. It wasn't that the kicker was flubbing up his kicks or something, but it was clearly a strategy. And I don't know what that strategy is. So I would love for one of the media people to ask that question of Coach Frost or one of the coaches to get that figured out.
Well, was Iowa known for having a really good returner?
They beat us
did.
last year with
a punt with a kickoff return.
Yeah.
He was good, but I don't think he was so good that you implement what they did, because we basically gave them to the 30 to 35 every time. They started every drive after a kickoff on the 30 to 35 every time.
Yep.
And they still had at least one good punt return where the setup was gorgeous. It was a kickoff return. I apologize. Where we did kick it off and kicked it deeper, but not into the end zone. And he got it at like 10-yard line, and they had great blocking, and away they go. So I don't know. I don't understand why we continue to struggle so much with special teams.
Yeah. If that really was the strategy, then I don't fully understand that point of view either. But in general, like we said, everybody was predicting that Iowa was going to win, even up to like 16 points, I think was the spread or something like that. So the fact that we played them close, shows that this team still has some fight left in them. We still have the talent. We could see that. Wandale Robinson had some great runs in the game.
And great catches.
Yep. And what's his name? Betts. Betts got in there a couple times. We saw some of our younger guys, doing some stuff.
Monte Brown had a good catch, a good run.
Right. But we just made enough dumb mistakes to cost us the game yet again. Which gets back to what our general thesis has been is like we think it would be better to simplify our offense, simplify our defense, and just focus on executing the basics, because that's what Iowa was doing. They weren't doing anything too complicated, and frankly, they had some dropped passes by their receivers that could have gotten them plenty more yards. And it just seems odd that we've got this awesome, hyped up spread offense of Scott Frost, and yet we can't execute a simple run it down the middle because our offensive line doesn't know how to block guys.
Right. Yep. Well, and again, we talked a little bit about this after the game, Alex, and that has to do with just this whole issue of you've got to find a way to win. At the end of the day, it's about W's, okay? And it's so frustrating because even though I predicted that we would lose this game, so I shouldn't be surprised or disappointed that we lost. However, after watching the game unfold, we had every opportunity to win that game. And had we won it, then that potentially puts us on a completely different trajectory for the remainder of this season and for momentum going into next season. And that influences not only the current players, because we got this weird situation where no one's eligibility is expiring as a result of this season, but it also has to do with the young players and their excitement to be a part of something that's growing in a positive direction. But instead, we have another loss, another crushing defeat based on a couple of really significant mistakes that were made during the course of the game that if we could have, that were self-inflicted. If we just clean those mistakes up, then we win the football game, right? It's not something that Iowa did to force us to do that. We did it ourselves, right? And so those are the kinds of things where you only have so many windows to do that. And in the case of Scott Frost, he's now in his third year as our coach. And those windows get smaller and smaller as a coach gets further and further in his tenure as the head coach of a football team. He can't promise a vision of the future. There's now enough evidence of the current from him that, that's a problem, right? So that was a hugely important game for us to win, and we didn't. So now our focus needs to shift on what's next, right?
Yep. Always on to what's next. And one other point I wanted to make on the stakes side is that Juergens unfortunately showed his bad snapping again with The two in particular I can remember where it just went completely out of the quarterback's hands and we lost, 10 yards and completely stunted those drives. And he got taken out and then got brought in. And in the second half, he did much better. I didn't really notice many weird snaps there. There's some controversy about Iowa apparently clapping on the sidelines to try to mess up his timing or whatever.
Yeah. But that would only change the fact that he would snap it at the wrong time, and Adrian might get a ball snapped to him unexpectedly, right?
Right.
And on the one snap that went past Adrian, okay, that was a really bad snap, it was also early, meaning it was one of the occasions that you're talking about where for whatever reason, whether it was Iowa people clapping on the sidelines or Iowa players on the defense clapping, it doesn't matter. To me, I wish that would not have been brought up. I think that's a pussy play call or complaint. You got to figure out a way to overcome that. Change your snap communication method if it's that big a deal. Because we've had this problem before. Michigan State in a previous season was clapping as part of their on their defense, and they actually got called for it once. Right? They got a personal foul penalty. One of their linebackers did for doing it. Okay, during a game. So the idea of disrupting Nebraska's offense with these errant clapping noises has been a thing for a while. Okay, so if you're Nebraska, figure out another way. Stop clapping, right? Figure out another way. Either this year you're hiking with no crowd, no noise, right? Just say hut, say hike, whatever, the old-fashioned way.
That's a point I was going to bring up.
Yes, was it?
This year,
Yeah.
there's no need for it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no need because there's nobody in the stands.
Right? Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
So-
why would you be doing that?
Right.
Right.
If it's an issue, if you really think it's an issue, then let's correct the issue, right? So,
Right. Yep. Well, one of the many things to add to the list on things we're trying to correct moving forward here. And I know that one of the things that you have harped on, Dad, in our off-podcast conversations is the importance of leadership on the team, not only in terms of, having that camaraderie with the guys, and having that command of the locker room, but then also being able to command the younger players' respect by proving it on the field and proving your skills. Right. And while we may have some guys that have some of those leadership qualities that you want to have, because we keep losing on the field, those younger guys aren't respecting those players in that way, and that's causing some kind of friction between the old and the new guard, as it were.
right. Well, there's always a transition that any young athlete who's coming into a college from high school has to go through, because it's a whole nother level of difficulty, of precision, of demand, of pressure that you never experienced at the high school level. No matter where you played high school football, it's a big jump to go to major college. And my point is that you need to have leaders on your team, and I think Scott has worked hard, and he's spoken very frequently on the subject of culture and trying to build that mentality. And he felt like that we had made great progress in that area, and I suspect we have off the field. But the issue is, at the end of the day, you also need leaders to be the guys who are your best football players. Those guys, whoever they are, who are your real talented football players, the guys that have the best chance of playing on Sunday, those guys also have to rise and be, to a degree, echoing the message of the leaders, if they're not the leader themselves, okay? And we don't have that right now. And what that tends to create is an environment where the young kids who are coming into the program immediately start thinking about self rather than team, because they're not brought in and taught you have to wait your turn. They're not brought in and taught this is the way. You know what I mean?
The Mandalorian.
Yeah, reference the Mandalorian. You come in and you have, especially in this day and age of social media, all your friends from back home, your parents, everybody in your ear telling you, well, you're better than what I'm seeing these guys on the field. You should be playing. This is BS that, Johnny's not starting, or see in the field. So Scott Frost just must not know how to utilize his talent. And what ends up happening is before those kids even get established in the community, established within the culture of Nebraska football, they bail. And we're witnessing that in terms of the number of departures that we're seeing from the football team, the number of kids who are true freshmen, okay? And especially with COVID and the complexity of that whole, what that adds to the environment at school and for a football season, have all worked against us to cause us to lose a lot of players. We're not the only team. This is happening to a lot of teams where guys are leaving, okay? But I think it's happening to us a little more because we don't have that established winning culture. And so it's easier to bail on a losing situation, right? It's always easier to bail on that. And I think we're seeing some of that. So it's very, very urgent for Scott Frost to have some success. And that's where I think now these last two games, both very losable games, but also both very winnable games, okay? And it's imperative that we win these next two games. I don't care how we do it, but we've got to have 2 more W's, okay? Because then we could at least take a 2-game winning streak into whatever's next, whether they have those 9th games with the crossover thing, or there's any potential for a bowl game where Nebraska might get invited. I don't care. Bottom line is we need to win these next 2 games, so we at least have a 2-game winning streak.
Right. AJ, on the broader question, because I think this is a hard question I'm going to ask you here, but in the modern age of football and with the kids being the way they are and with social media and all that stuff, that coaches can't be as hard-ass as they used to be, and you're in the situation that Scott Frost is currently in where he's been struggling to, win games, getting 4-win seasons or whatever. So when you're struggling to get that success on the field that will propel you to, make those kids believe, what's the best method you think for him to try to keep the team together, as it were?
Oh God, Alex, that's way over my pay grade. I'm telling you, I would have no idea how we'd keep 150 guys together, floating in the right direction together. You've got to have leadership, as Pete talked about, and Coach has talked about. Again, he's talked about that from day one.
Yes.
But really, overall, since he's been here, I haven't seen any real leaders. Maybe other than the middle linebacker last year, he was a pretty good leader. He wasn't all that great of a player, but he was a damn good leader.
Barry.
Barry. He was a top-notch guy, an individual, but he was a good leader and everything. He just wasn't a great inside linebacker for us. But I really, at this point, wow, that's got to be pretty difficult to keep everybody floating or oaring in the same direction. It's going to be very, very difficult for him. And to go on with what Pete was talking about, that makes it tougher to keep those young guys, and it gets tougher every year. It gets tougher to recruit more young guys. Right. I think he's going to really, really depend on JUCO in the future in order to fill in some of these gaps of these young kids leaving.
Well, and transfers. I think now he's going to have to become a leader in figuring out how to take advantage of this free agency era that we now find ourselves.
That might be the biggest thing. Well, you saw that so far. I mean, that fella that came over from Rutgers, I want to believe, is he's a contributor, and he looks like he could be somebody for us too.
Right.
And I know that there's a couple others that have transferred here throughout this year. I think I'm not 100% sure.
Martin,
but I think that's a
wide receiver.
Yeah, I think that could be a big thing with this free agency. We're going to have to do that instead of relying on those freshmen coming in, and then they look at it and they say, "Oh, they're not getting enough time, or they're not getting looked at." Just like the kid that just left. I mean, that's just insane for a freshman to say that he's,
not getting enough
playing time.
It's like a true freshman.
Yeah,
on that point, you just made me think, because we've talked on past podcasts about how important it is to have a quarterback that can execute your system, and how we haven't had that for a decade plus at this point. But we've seen other teams, in high-profile situations, get a transfer quarterback in who only has 1 year of eligibility left, but in that 1 year they come in and do great stuff. So to the point of what you were talking about before, of needing to cultivate that success, and show the young guys like, hey, this team can execute and we can win games. What about if we went after trying to get, even if it's just for 1 year or 2 years, just getting a more experienced quarterback to transfer in to get us jump started, essentially.
Or just when the opportunity is presented in front of you and you don't take advantage of it, and that guy goes on to win the Heisman Trophy, that still drives me freaking crazy. I mean, when the opportunities are there to grab somebody that is a very good football player, you grab them.
Right. LSU's QB.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep. So, well, the thing with that, I would say almost every other position, you do that. You go and you make your room better, right?
Right.
With quarterbacks, because they are the golden boys and because they're recruited differently, right? And oftentimes teams recruit only one quarterback a year. It's very rare. Back in the day, again, we had more scholarships. Okay, 95, even 105 scholarships. Tom Osborne might recruit 3 quarterbacks in a season. Okay, but over time, quarterback recruiting has evolved to where the top quarterbacks do not want to go somewhere unless they're pretty much guaranteed or promised that they're going to be the only player, only quarterback recruited in that class. Okay,
yes.
They acknowledge, okay, I'm going to have to compete against some other guys, but it's going to be one guy per class, and at the very least, there's going to be time gap in eligibility between me and the guy next to me, right? And then whoever loses that battle ends up transferring, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what happens. So the problem with bringing in that 1-year wonder or a 2-year wonder that's a transfer at the quarterback position is you might very well, and this has been proven over and over, not necessarily at Nebraska, but across college football, is you can spoil your quarterback room. But all of a sudden, a bunch of guys transfer out, and so you have to do this only when you have already, in your opinion, had enough time to evaluate your guys and know that they're not going to get there, right? Like, for example, and I'm going to use our quarterback room as an example. If we're now ready to say, even though Adrian is now going to remain a junior, right, and Martinez is going to be, Luke McCaffrey is going to remain a sophomore, or maybe he's even a redshirt freshman. I don't even remember what Luke is. But bottom line is, if we're going to determine that, okay, Luke's not really ever going to become the quarterback we need him to be, we want him to take his athleticism and make him a wide receiver. Okay, maybe you have that conversation with him. And then that opens the door for you to go out and say, okay, Adrian, you're my junior, you're my guy, but you know what? You have not performed at the level that I need. I'm going to go out and see if I can make our room better. And you do it with the risk that Adrian will bug out. And now, the guy that you've invested 3 years of teaching and training your system and everything, he's walking out the door because you stepped over the top of him, right?
Right.
And so that's the challenge. Now, you do that for a linebacker position, whatever, because we're recruiting a bunch of those guys, right? But at quarterback, it's very different, and that's the challenge. So I'm not saying he shouldn't do it. In fact, I would say right now, I think you can objectively say Adrian's probably never going to get to where Scott had envisioned he was going to get when he was recruited as a freshman, and I'm pretty sure he can also say that about Luke, although he's not saying it publicly. So unless this Smothers kid, who is our true freshman, has really got the skills to throw the football and run the football effectively to execute Scott's system, then getting an additional quarterback is a great idea and one that he should feel comfortable doing, knowing that he could have those two guys leave, that Luke and Adrian might both transfer out.
McCaffrey is a redshirt freshman.
He is. Thank you. Okay.
All right. AJ is here with the stats here for us. So looking ahead.
Oh, wait a minute. AJ, do you follow what I said?
Yeah,
do you
agree,
did, or do you think screw that?
Yeah, I'm 180 degrees from you.
Okay.
I think they need to clean house and just say, hey, you got to compete. You've been losing 4 wins a year for the last 2 years, and this year they'll be damn lucky to end up with 2.
I know.
That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
You bring them in, you're going to compete. You don't want to compete, don't come
And
here.
this is a
and
3-year
go
starter.
and rely on being able to get transfers.
Right.
Rely on getting a JUCO.
Right.
Because it just doesn't make any sense that we have to coddle these young players.
Right. We never used to.
No, and I think that, something else that sparked while you were talking about that. What about this quarterback coach now?
Yes.
This is his
Verdasco.
3rd year.
3 years in.
3 years in.
Yep.
And, the first year with Adrian, they really looked like they were going to do something.
Right.
And it really looked good. But why all of a sudden Adrian went to, I don't know what last year, that was not good. And this year, he's slightly better, but he's still nowhere near how good he was. Why is it that he is not able to do what he was able to do before?
Right.
What did they do with the offense? Did they do anything with the offense that changed it for him?
I think the offense is not as wide open as it was the first year because the defenses of the Big Ten have caught up with what Scott's doing.
Exactly.
I think that's part of it. But the other part is I think Adrian's accuracy has deteriorated rather than gotten better. And that is squarely on Verdasco. That's squarely on the offensive, the quarterback coach.
Right. Alex and I spoke of this the other day, that when a new offense or defense, doesn't matter which one it is, comes into play, whether it's in the NFL or college football, it's around and they're really great for about 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And then all the offensive or defensive coordinators, depending on which one you're looking at, they figure out what that new system is. And I think that folks have figured out the system that Scott's got, and I think that they're making him look bad.
Right.
I mean, scoring 23 points, this is an offense that should be scoring 35 points a game.
Absolutely.
In nowadays era,
Yeah,
in today's era,
at least.
when it's all the rules are against the defense, he should be scoring 35 points a game.
Right.
I can be okay with the defense giving up 21 points a game or something close to that. I'm okay with that. In today's game, geez,
that would be great.
Crazy. Yeah, that's okay. Although I hate that, it's part of today's game.
Right.
But the offense has got to be able to score 35 points if you're going to be that wide open.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, they got some pretty doggone good athletes on that offensive side of the ball.
They do. And that has been the focus of our recruiting, has been on the offensive side. We got a lot of the pieces for the puzzle. The problem is they continue to make mistakes. It's the turnovers. It's the 3 and outs because now all the team has to do is get us off schedule. Keep us from being able to get into rhythm, and we're completely inept.
Different team.
Yeah.
And to your point, Adrian showed some improvements in this game compared to when we had last seen him. In terms of his throwing accuracy.
Right.
And, he has a couple of nice runs where he scrambled and things like that.
Yep.
But then there were also times where we saw like he was taking way too long to make throws, or would just miss somebody who was open out to the right, or whatever.
Oh, one play he was back there for like 6 seconds. Oh yeah. And your internal clock has got to tell you, after about 4, at the count of 4 seconds back there, you need to be making a decision and going. Whatever it is, you either need to be throwing the ball out of bounds and just live to play another day, or tucking it and running it, or whatever. Because if you wait those extra 2 seconds like he did, guess what happens? Even though you're an athlete and you're quick, now you've let the other team's players converge on you to the point where, because they know you got to make that decision too. So they're already coming back towards you. And so what happens? You don't even get out of the pocket and you get tackled for a loss. When if you had made that decision just a second and a half earlier, now you're out in open space and you're making a 15-yard scramble and you make a guy miss and now it's 30 yards, right? And he's got the athleticism to do that shit. But he's not making that decision. So what in the coaching and in his preparation for the games, what is going on that makes him think it's the right decision for him to wait that extra second and see if he can see somebody come open, especially given how much difficulty our wide receivers are having getting open under any circumstances, because we got a bunch of slow guys at wide receiver right now. Our speed is not consistently on the field.
I took exception to that. We've got some pretty damn fast guys.
Oh, we do?
You can't tell me that Antonio Brown, I think his name is, not Antonio Brown.
No. No, it's not Antonio. It's Alante.
Alante
Brown.
Brown.
Yep.
And Bets.
Yeah.
They've got serious
phenomenal.
speed.
But my point is, they're not the starters.
Yeah.
They're getting like Alante had. He ran one time for 18 yards. His receiving, what's his name? Betts 1 for 15 yards. But we have Levi Falk as a starter. Cade Warner is a starter.
Well, but Cade Warner normally can catch the doggone ball.
Except for the one that was right in his hands for a touchdown and he missed. Yeah. So the one time, the biggest catch that Cade Warner had this entire season, and it was a beautiful throw.
Well, it was.
It went right through his hands. Yeah. Okay,
well,
I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't a beautiful throw. I know the one you're talking about. It was a damn wounded duck.
Well,
it was a wounded duck. You go back and look at that. It was
those
a
are
huge
easier to catch. Frankly.
No. He had to try to. Those kind of guys can catch the ball with their hands.
I know.
And they're used to a spiral where they catch it with their hands.
Yeah.
He had to put his arms up because the thing's coming at him like a wounded duck.
Yeah.
I know the exact play you're talking about. He was in the back end of the end zone. He was wide open. But he tried to catch it with his arms because that thing's coming in like it was crazy how bad that was. I remember that because Alex and I talked about that the other day.
But that's the reason we have him out there. He's our sure-handed guy.
Right.
We're giving up the speed and the athleticism in exchange for the guy that doesn't make mental mistakes, that understands and is a good leader. He's one of our captains. And when we needed him to step up and make a play that a captain needs to make, he failed. Okay, and if I'm not getting that from him, then I need to put my athlete out there. So I'm in agreement with you that we have the athletes. They haven't been playing, but that's why we're seeing some of these athletes leave because they're looking at it and saying, "I'm way better than that guy, and I'm not getting a chance." Well, this place is screwy. I'm gone because there's nothing else to keep them there because they can't be social. There's nothing about this year's college experience that's normal. So they're not going to parties. They're not having the typical college experience. And heck, usually they'd be going down to the Haymarket area and experiencing the fun elements of being in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's all gone. So now there's no beach, there's no water, there's no sunshine and warm weather. So in the COVID era, there ain't much appeal to Lincoln, right? And so it's quick for those guys to deteriorate and decide this is not my place.
And I do think that the COVID stuff definitely is a factor in all that. Like you say, that's affecting all schools. But,
it is.
Nebraska in particular, there's not a lot to do outdoors per se, in a safe way or whatever.
If you're a fisherman and a hunter, and that's about it.
Well, right.
Most
and how many of those
from
Miami?
Most of the kids from Miami and California are not
that.
Fishermen or hunters.
That's correct.
All right.
Okay.
So looking ahead to next week,
yes.
we're playing against Purdue, who played this past weekend against Rutgers and lost 37-30. Interestingly, looking back at their schedule, their first two games were against Iowa and Illinois, and they beat both of them, those teams both beat us. But then they've lost their last three games in a row now, so they're on a bit of a downward streak here. But they've all been close. They've all been with a touchdown or less in terms of points, both their wins and their losses. So I feel like they're a team that we have the talent to beat, and that I think we should beat. If we execute what we need to do. But I also think they'll hang in there with us, and if we drop a punt in the fourth quarter like we did against Iowa, they'll capitalize on that.
Absolutely true. Yeah, they have some great wide receivers. Rondale Moore is an even better version of our Wandale Robinson. Okay, and they're actually close friends and competitors. Grew up competing against each other, and that is going to be an issue because Rondale is going to be ready to explode in this game. He is going to be on fire. Okay, their quarterback is also a guy who's got some salty experience to him. It's not his first rodeo. Plummer's been there a while, and so I worry about what their offense is going to be able to do because I have great respect for Purdue's coach. He's a good coach. We are playing them there. Okay, but I will say this. I would agree with you that we are capable of winning and beating this team because I don't think their defense is as good as it's been. I think we should be able – Rutgers put 37 points up against them, and frankly, we watched parts of that game, Alex. They were moving that ball very effectively against Purdue's defense, and Purdue's defense occasionally could rise up and make a stop or make a big play, but they were getting beat at the line of scrimmage on most downs by Rutgers offense.
Right.
So
right.
that gives me optimism.
Yep. All right. So looking ahead to that game, we'll give our predictions now, as we usually do. I'm going to go ahead and be optimistic here and say that Nebraska, like we say, finds a way. It can be ugly. I don't care, but they find a way to win that game, and we can hopefully capitalize on that against Minnesota and end off our season strongly. So I'll go ahead and predict, let's say, 31 Nebraska and 24 Purdue. Let's go with that as my score.
Wow. Okay. That's a good score. I'm going to say that we are going to need to score more points. I'm going to also be optimistic, go with the assumption that we're going to take another step in a positive direction, that Martinez is going to be our starter, but that we're going to see McCaffrey play a few series and maybe even get back to having them both on the field at the same time, like we saw for a few series in the Ohio State game. But I'm going to say that we're going to need to score 40 points or thereabouts. So I'm going to say 42-35 Nebraska.
Okay. What do you think, AJ?
I'm going to say 38-27 Purdue.
All right. We've got the naysayer here.
Yeah. Well, he's probably. I like that score too. I like that score a lot, actually. Although, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no.
They look at. I just noticed that they come out with the line, and it's Purdue by 1, which is
a pick 'em, basically.
Yeah, basically. Right. Yeah. Anything less than 3 is a pick 'em.
Well, it's a 2-4 team against the 1-4
team. 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
That's right. 2
versus
and 3,
1 and 4.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the you know how they put up the comparison stats.
Yeah. Oh God,
I'm looking at that, and there's an awful lot of black on the Purdue side, on both the offensive and defensive side.
That's true.
There we go.
Okay, special teams, a lot of the black is on the Purdue side.
And they do. They have great special teams. They've got great athletes for punt returners and stuff like that. They have great speed. They're just a good football team. But I think their defensive and offensive lines might be an area where if we can neutralize their offensive line, and I think that our defense will be able to stop their running game. Their running back is a fullback.
Right.
Okay, so we tend to do better with guys who are bulky but not fast. What really has hurt us, i.e. the Illinois game, was the speed of their running backs, right? The speed was more of a detriment to us than the physical part, because we seem to hold up well physically. So my question is, can we shut down that and make them use Rondell in their running game and things of that nature, because they can't get anything going? That's what Rutgers did. Rutgers shut down that fullback that they've got at running back, right? They pretty much really locked in on him and shut him down pretty good.
All
and
right.
I think that was their key.
Yep. So we'll look to emulate that. You know, I said while watching the game, hey, hopefully Rutgers wins this so we can kind of see a bit of a game plan of what we can do against Purdue coming up. So it is 4:12 now in terms of the time we're recording this podcast. Do you believe we have time to go into the more national side of things in the different games?
Let's do it.
Wrap it up here.
I may have to leave here pretty soon. Another 10 minutes or so. And,
Okay. 10 minutes. We can do that.
We can do that, yes.
All right. So the games that happened this past weekend, the biggest one, which we talked about on the last podcast, was Iowa State, Texas. And we ended up getting, Nebraska lost, which sucks, of course, but we got the treat of Texas losing 23-20 against Iowa State there was a field goal near the end of the game that won it for Iowa State.
Go Cyclones!
Hey, yeah. So
and that puts them in the driver's seat to win the Big 12 regular season.
Right, and they play against West Virginia this upcoming weekend, but I think even if they lose that, they're making it into the championship game.
Correct.
But the problem is they probably have to fight Oklahoma, who they beat earlier, but we know the talent of Oklahoma, of
right.
course.
And
so
it's
can
hard
they
to beat
do it
anybody twice who's a good team. Yeah.
Right. But I sure would like to see Iowa State, who used to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 while we were in the conference, to be the best this year. That would be kind of cool. We also watched the Penn State-Michigan game, two teams that both struggled this year, and we both thought on the last podcast that Michigan would pull out the W now that they had kind of figured out what they wanted to do on quarterback in that Rutgers game. But he actually got hurt at one point in the game, and Penn State managed. It was kind of an ugly game, but they managed to claw it out. It was 27-17 Penn State.
No kind of ugly. It was an ugly game.
Yeah, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then we also had an interesting upset. Northwestern playing at Michigan State, who only had one win against Michigan. And they found a way to win against undefeated Northwestern, 29-20.
And all the people down the street at the Big Ten headquarters in Chicago were screaming and throwing shit because they really messed things up for the Big Ten.
Yep. Now they put a dark mark on Northwestern's record, even though now with Wisconsin being uneligible from competing in the Big Ten championship,
right.
I'm pretty sure Northwestern has their ticket there anyways.
Right. Northwestern, right. Northwestern is the bell cow of the West almost regardless, and now that bell cow just got shot and has only 2 legs left.
But do you honestly think that they had a prayer of beating an Ohio State or anybody else?
But they had a prayer of beating Indiana, which is a very good chance that they end up playing Indiana rather than Ohio State, because Ohio State only has to lose or miss one more week, and they would be ineligible.
Because their game against Illinois was canceled this past weekend.
So now they've lost 2 games or missed 2 games because of COVID. If they miss a third, they're out, just like Wisconsin.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
It would be. It would be kind of sad.
COVID.
But it would be kind of cool to see something different at least, you know. And then in the Pac-12, we had a pretty big upset. Oregon playing against their rival Oregon State, who they almost always beat. This time Oregon State found a way, 41-38, with some of our old players from the Mike Riley era.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Is Tristan?
Tristan Jebbia,
the quarterback.
Yep.
Holy cow!
And he beat Oregon, and Oregon is loaded with talent. I don't know how that happened. I would love to watch that game.
Who's the head coach out there?
At Oregon State?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's somebody from the Mike Riley tree, I think.
Right.
That's what it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think it's still the same.
Yeah, and Riley's there as a consultant to that coach.
Right.
Yeah. So, good for them. Seeing some success out there. Obviously, the Pac-12's in an even weirder situation than the Big Ten. They got started even later.
And having Oregon lose. I mean, that was going to be their bell cow. Oregon was their team.
The Pac-12 commissioner is slamming his head against the wall.
Exactly.
All right.
And maybe Utah now. I don't know who the best in that.
And then this upcoming weekend, the biggest game that stood out to me, even though that Wisconsin is, like we said, out of contention for the Big Ten title, they're playing against Indiana, who is obviously doing very well on the other side of the conference. And with Wisconsin having missed so many games, it makes it a little more unclear to me, although Indiana's quarterback got hurt in their game this weekend.
Yeah.
If that Indiana, did it look like a really serious injury? Or
I didn't see it myself. I just saw the headline that he had gotten hurt.
If he can't play, that's huge for Indiana.
That
dramatically changed it. And it goes back to, all of our struggles. We spent a lot of this podcast, Alex, for Nebraska, talking about the quarterback. Mm-hmm. If we had a quarterback who was executing at a reasonable level for Scott Frost's system, we would be looking at a recent history of way more victories. You look at how many games we lost that were within a touchdown, and if we had a quarterback who wasn't self-destructing and just making horrible decisions with great regularity, then we would be winning a lot more football games. And that's the bottom line. You look at the teams that are doing well, no matter the league, they got a good quarterback.
Yep. And then in the SEC, we have 2 interesting games: Texas A&M versus Auburn, and then Alabama versus LSU, which normally would be a tight
huge
matchup.
Game, yeah.
But of course, LSU has really struggled this year, so I have no doubt that Alabama's gonna take care of them pretty easy, like they did against Auburn this weekend in the Iron Bowl.
Right.
But that's it in terms of the games. Not as many big ones this weekend, but we may see some upsets like we have the past 2 weeks. Thinking about that Wisconsin-Indiana game, let's presume that Indiana's QB is hurt and won't play. What do you think on the score for that game?
Oh man, if that Indiana quarterback isn't there, I think Wisconsin wins that game pretty comfortably. I'm going to say by 14 points. So let's go 35-21.
35-21. All right. And I'm going to agree with you there. I think if that guy is out, then that is obviously a big deal. I'll go a little bit higher scoring, actually. Let's say 38 to 24. Let's go with that.
Okay.
What do you think, AJ?
I'll go with. It depends that when Wisconsin was down this last 2 weeks, were they completely shut down? I mean, like they talked like they weren't even practicing.
Well, that was previously. This time they didn't play this week because of Minnesota, not because of them.
Okay, so they were practicing.
So they were practicing. So Wisconsin was able to practice.
But they're coming off of a loss against
Right.
Northwestern, was it?
Yes.
Right.
What did you pick? 28-21?
38-24.
28-21.
28-21.
And Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, yeah.
All right.
If they're practicing, shoot, I think that and that kid is out. That was the qualifier.
Yep.
Right.
If that quarterback for Indiana is
Yeah.
out,
If
he's absolutely a difference maker.
If he's in, then it's a much closer game, I think. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me this episode. Thank you, AJ, for being our special guest.
Thank you
this
for having me.
Yeah. And we'll have to see what we're talking about next week. Hopefully a Nebraska victory and on the upswing for the end of the season. That's what we're hoping for.
That's what we need.
So if you all out there enjoyed listening to this podcast, you can reach out to us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes if you search for College Football Throwdown. Please leave us a review or a rating. Let us know what you think of the podcast. We always like hearing from the fans, and we'll read any feedback out on the air. So thank you all for listening, and until next time, go Big Red.
Go Big Red!